now many people go through loss, wana go through grief.
Yes.
Na tukiongelea loss, si ati mtu kukufa peke yake. Tuseme umepoteza job, you have lost a relationship.
Yes.
Na hapo uko kwa process ya loss and grief. Today we want to talk about hii maneno ya loss and grief. Kunaenda aje? What is loss? What is grief? Mtu anajaribu I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to look for closure. Vitu kama hizo tutaweza kuongelea leo katika Raushwa.
Exactly.
Asubuhi ya leo.
Na tunataka pia kujua how do you overcome such.
Yes.
Ukiwa na depression because of loss, when you're grieving, how do you know you're grieving? So we are going to be talking about that. Na tujue vile you overcome such things. And during this life, lazima you have to go through life finally and come out alive. So tunataka kujua how you do that. Na kama unataka kutuongelesha, kama unataka kuendelea kuongea na sisi kwa this discussion.
Hii discussion tuachangie.
Tutatumia numbers gani?
0721 105 105 22545 na pia kwenye MBCI TV Facebook page. Uliza swali. Loss and grief. It's a very hard topic, but we have to look at it, tuzungumzie, so that many people can get to heal.
Exactly.
Yes. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Hi.
I am glad to be back again.
Pleasure.
I was here 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
We thank the Lord. Ulikuja ukatupea wisdom. Hadi watu wako zile za I have learned a lot and we just had to have you for the second time.
Wow.
Karibu sana to our studios.
And thank you for coming.
Yes. Sasa leo tunataka kuongelea kuhusu loss and grief. Many people go through loss and grief, but wanasema I haven't healed enough. So to start us off, what is loss? What is grief?
Great. Thank you very much. The first thing that everybody needs to understand is that as long as we live, we always lose. And as long as we live, we will always grieve.
True.
All right.
I want to put it in context so that it does not make people now start despairing about life. There's so much in life. Now, I love, as I said the other time, I love putting everything in the perspective of our faith.
Yes.
All right.
And this being a Christian station, I don't think there's a lot of conflict of interest.
Very true.
Loss is simply something that you have and then you no longer have it anymore.
Yes.
In fact, in psychological context, we talk about bereavement and grief.
Bereavement and grief.
Yes.
Okay.
But because over time the word bereavement has got to have the connotation of death.
Yeah, many
then
times.
People now, when they want to talk about the generality of it, they talk about loss.
Okay.
So loss is that situation or scenario where at one point you have, then you don't have.
You don't have it anymore.
So you become bereft. And that which now is comes to a point where you don't have has some emotional attachment.
True.
So when it's no longer there, there is a trigger for emotional response or psychological response. So bereavement is loss of something.
Yes.
Okay.
And grief is response to that loss.
Oh,
In
so loss,
simple words.
I have lost it. Then
Yes.
grieving is a response
Now
to
you-
what I
The
have
loss.
lost.
Now you respond.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Hey.
interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yes. Okay,
Now.
so nishaanza kulearn.
Now we have someone who is grieving. You're in a situation where you're in a family, sindio, and you've lost one of your people. There's a way you will grieve, and there's a way I will grieve. That will be your response. How will I be able to help someone who has grieved, who is grieving, and we are almost in the same situation?
Yeah.
So both of you are in the fire.
Yes,
Yes.
both of us in the
and,
fire.
And one has to get stronger than the other so that
Yes.
they can help the other get out of the fire and the process also help themselves get out of the fire.
Yes.
Interesting. I refer to a story in the Bible, the book of Job. And Job gets these losses in a series after a very short time, and not just property and possessions. He also loses his own health. His friends come, and when they come there, they suffer secondary grief. So they sit with him for 7 days. The Bible says they sat with him for 7 days. And after 7 days, Job could not take it anymore. So he opened his mouth and started ventilating. But that one also opened floodgates for a lot of things. But basically, when you are both of you in the same, the priority action is to process that grief, to process that loss, and the emotions that accompany the loss, the psychological, the behavioral, and all the emotional presentation, or how you express it. And each person in a family processes grief in a different way.
Very
because, as I said, we are all originally made. We are unique. No one thinks like the other. No one feels like the other.
True.
And so each of us have different capacities for coping. So if you have lost and I have lost, we are in the same scenario. Definitely, either one may go through the stages of loss in a different way, or another will be more equipped to cope with that grief. So the one who is now better off, now assuming you, because you said that we have lost someone, how can I help that person? The best thing is, first, understand your own emotional let me call it roller coaster. You know, grief cannot have a formula.
It's just like, it's a wave.
Yes, and you can anticipate that when this happens, this is how I'm supposed to respond. But then it comes and hits you, and you just find yourself frozen. You don't know how to respond to it.
You're numb.
So the first thing is to seek to understand yourself. Process your own grief. Process your own emotion. Otherwise, what normally happens is that I may now want, in helping you, to also help myself. In the process, I start transferring my emotions to you, so that instead of helping you, when I think I'm helping you, kumbe, I'm just seeking how to help myself through helping you, and I keep you more burdened. So the most important thing first is self. Understand self. Understand where you are. Understand how you feel and how you are cognitively processing what you are going through. Then you'll be able now to focus on the other. It's a case of love your neighbor as yourself. But if you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor.
It will be very hard.
So it's me. Then I understand, okay, this is how I feel. Then when I know how I feel, I can seek to help you understand how you feel. Then together we walk the journey.
We walk the journey. You've heard of it.
Nimesikia maneno.
Yes.
So you said something about secondary grieving. So are there stages of grieving? Juu nimesikia we mentioned kitu about secondary grieving. So are there stages of grieving?
There's a lady called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. In 1969, she was researching about grief, and she came up with a model of grieving. Well, it has been reviewed over time, revised to suit situations as life changes. And she came up with the 5 stages of a normal grief, if there is anything like normal grief.
It's very different for everyone.
But you know, in grief, we have the anticipatory, the normal, and the complicated, where the complicated has its own myriad ways. But according to Kubler-Ross, she said that when you lose someone or something that you are so emotionally attached to, the first thing when you get the news or when you get the realization is denial. You respond by denial. For example, in this time of COVID, many people did not really conceptualized it in the beginning, last year, early last year. And we had COVID is in China and it is in Europe,
Wuhan.
and we did not. And people said, oh, in Africa we can't get COVID because it is very hot, and this COVID is afraid of the sun. And you know, in Africa, that's where God lives, so we have sun always. Now COVID hit. It hit hard.
Yeah.
And suddenly, people are at home. So no work. When do we get food? When? And people found themselves confronting new realities that they had not even anticipated.
Yes.
And many people said, this one is ending in a week's time. It's ending in a few days' time.
Yeah.
Now, that is a typical denial response.
Yes.
If you are diagnosed with COVID, you've been in the house, totally locked down and being a good citizen.
Isolation.
And then you start feeling those symptoms, and suddenly you're told you have
COVID.
First thing you'll be, no, it can't be.
Have COVID.
How did I get
I've been here all the time. Who brought it here? I can't be.
It can't happen.
No. You hear suddenly your friend, your colleague, your loved one is no more. There was an accident that happened somewhere, and you're like, no. I was nilikuwa naye asubuhi tu.
Hapa tu.
And you look so okay. That is denial. That's the first response.
Yes.
Denial.
Yes.
And then time brings you to the next stage depending on how you handle the denial stage. If it's a normal routine. So you start, if I can illustrate it in a graph.
Okay.
I like illustrating a lot. So this is the graph. So denial is that flat, no response at all, no reaction. This can be okay. This one can be true. I feel healthy. It's just a normal flu.
Yeah.
And then you realize,
It's escalating.
actually it is true.
Yes.
So what happens? You respond by anger. Now there's a spike in emotion.
Now you're mad.
You start reacting in anger. How can I get COVID? I followed the protocols as outlined by the government.
I wore my mask.
How?
Yes.
I have been praying so much. You know, how can this happen?
Yeah.
And also you react with anger. It can be anger against self. Why did I have to go to that shop?
Yeah.
Wow.
When I went to the shop, I think that's why I contracted it.
Why did I do this?
You know?
Yes.
So now, how can it be? You are angry. You can be angry at self. You can be angry with the significant others.
Situation.
You can be angry with the situation. You can be angry with God.
Yes.
And so you get to that. And anger is a very intense emotion that burns a lot of energy in your system.
Yes.
So you cannot sustain anger for long. So with the time that fuels anger burns out. And then you go to now the antithesis of anger. So I said you start like this, then it flares up. Now it goes, you start slowing in anger, and you start saying, surely, actually, so you start now getting into...
You get used to
Yeah, like it's okay.
depression. You start getting into depression.
it. So after anger,
You've spent a lot of energy, so now you start getting back down where your energy levels are so low. And when I talk about energy levels, emotional coping mechanisms, psychological coping mechanisms, so you are getting to that valley, to that depression. After climbing the hill of emotions, now you are getting down. That's why I say it's a roller coaster.
Roller coaster. Okay.
You start getting depressed. Surely, imagine I have COVID, I may
how
die.
did this happen?
Now, surely, what
will I even
next?
do?
Will I come out of it alive? And how will life be now in the
What
post
will I
of
be
it?
doing?
And
Will I survive this?
you see.
Yes.
But now, before you get to the depression, while you're still at that plateau, as you start now tipping down.
Anger.
Yes, now your anger is dissipating, and now unaanza kuisha, huwezi kasirika tena. You don't have the energy to sustain that anger. Now you start bargaining. Before you get to depression, you start bargaining. Seriously, if I am found that I don't have COVID,
I wish.
I will stay in my bedroom. I won't even go to the sitting room lest I meet anyone. I'll be a good person. I will eat healthy. No. If I just wake up out of this nightmare and find that it's not real, I really will make more time to spend with my loved one. And you are bargaining, God, let this not be true. Let it not be true. Imagine if I get healed now, I'll be praying morning, lunchtime, and evening.
Religiously, I have decided.
Yes. Now you start bargaining, and you can bargain with self, you can bargain with a higher authority.
Like with God.
Like with God. And you are there. And you are like, I wish, like those who lost their jobs.
Very true.
If you save the company, and just there again, they have talked about retrenchment, and if only there's a turnaround and I'm back in the job, I'll work so hard. I'll make sure that the company is the best.
I'll be going to work early. I won't be lazy again. Never, ever.
And I'll be leaving at 6.
And then now you start by, if this happens, this is what I'll do. This, and then you are like,
start promising.
Only if it happens. God, why doesn't it happen? Let it happen.
Let it just happen, please.
Why is it actually true?
It is not happening.
Yeah.
It's no use arguing. Now you are getting to the valley.
You're going down.
Down now into depression. Then you are there, you are like, it's hopeless, can't be helped.
It's over, it's done.
Some people like making a joke saying it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And you find that now there's nothing that I can do about it, and I am there.
Yeah.
And you start wondering now, how will I come out of there?
What will I do?
How will life be?
Yes.
I'm finished. You'll hear people saying, I'm finished.
Everything is over.
And then also, it takes the hand of God to take you from there. That's why I love Psalms 23. It says, He restores my soul. I mean, you are there, sometimes you feel like, I don't want to pray anymore. What is the use anyway? God is not listening to me. And you walk and you are numb and you are so down, and when you start praying, it's like your emotions are telling you, who are you kidding? What is the use anyway? Where was God when this was happening?
During all this trouble.
And then you are like, is God there? Has He forgotten me?
Start doubting.
No. And then you are there and you are like, nobody cares anyway. And then you know, the Spirit of God just somehow starts reviving you, and you start seeing light. You see, at the valley there is darkness. Remember Joseph in the pit? That's a classical illustration. And he's in the pit and he's looking down, there's no water to drink. So when I start getting thirsty, I cannot get the help. And he looks within him, and I'm not strong enough to climb this wall, so he gets depressed. And he looks around him, and all these walls are really...
It's like they're coming into him.
And he gets so stressed, and finally he realizes, when I look up, the sun is still shining. And the Spirit of God restores your soul. Once your soul is restored, then now you can get to the next level. You are lifted again to the original level. And now you continue with acceptance.
Now you move on.
Same level as denial. You started with denial, anger, bargaining, depression. And then now you are revived again, and you're back to the same level. And that is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean that the situation is no longer there.
It's okay now.
Simply means that you have processed your grief, and now you have learned to live without whatever it is that you lost. With the emotional attachments. Does not mean that you forget, does not mean that the pain goes away, but it means now you learn to live with the pain, live positively,
and just move on.
And now you can cope
ahead.
Yes.
Okay. And now I've heard him talking about how you cope. Coping mechanisms. You've mentioned emotional, spiritual. Could you give us more info on that?
The coping mechanisms, we have the positive and the negative. When I talk about, okay, in layman's language, we talk about positive and negative.
Yes.
Psychological, we talk about adaptive and maladaptive.
Adaptive and
Maladaptive.
Okay.
And this is just easy. From the word adapt, helping you to adapt, helping you to live in the new situation, in the new normal, in the new reality. And so there are things that you can do that will help you to adapt.
Yes.
But also there are other coping mechanisms that will not help you come out of your grief very fast.
Okay.
And the first thing that comes into mind in the scenario of loss, and especially when that loss is traumatic, you know, you can lose your phone and grieve for 2-3 days and get another phone. But it also depends on how attached you were to your phone.
Yeah.
If you weren't, you'll be like, I'll just get another one.
Yeah.
If you had some extra money and you decided, let me enter Safaricom shop.
Even it was a time for me to upgrade.
You may find that you are copying easier.
Yes.
But if you got that phone on the day he proposed to you, as an antedote to that proposal, you look at the ring of proposal, you see the phone, and your emotions go there.
Yeah.
Now that phone loss may mediate a bigger grief than just a normal loss.
The
Yeah.
normal one.
You see. So we are talking about adaptive and maladaptive.
Okay.
Adaptive, I'll give you an acronym that we can use to remember how to adapt in a simple day-to-day life. And the first one is deer.
Dear.
Deer, you know that animal?
Yes.
Deer. And the D is starts with drink.
Drink.
Now, when we also talk about drink in our society today,
It has a lot of meanings and thoughts inside it.
drink.
Okay.
When you are grieving, you dehydrate very fast.
Oh, yes.
Because
very
you are
true.
shedding your tears, you're using a lot of energy.
You're stressed.
And so you are very vulnerable to dehydration.
Yes.
So drink fluids, drink water. Drink a lot of water, drink a lot of fluids. It energizes your body to cope because you need a lot of energy to cope.
With that situation.
The second one is
E.
eat.
Drink. Now we are on eat.
Yes. So you see, drink, you may not have appetite, but you don't have appetite for drinking. You know, you drink water, you just drink.
You just have
can
to.
sip, you can. For food, you need appetite to really eat and enjoy.
Yes.
But when you are in grief, you find that your best preferred food will taste like sawdust, and you know, you
I
see
don't
these
want
people
to
who are
eat.
You
grieving
don't feel
and
like
they say,
eating.
how can I eat when so and so is not? Especially if you are so attached to someone you have lost and you used to eat together.
Yeah.
So especially spousal loss and grief. So eat. We talked about how do you help your friend or your sibling or your family member.
Yes.
Make sure they drink water. Make sure that they eat. You eat now not to enjoy the meal.
No.
Not because you need the meal, but to fuel your body.
Or else you'll end up down.
And you will have more complications because when your body exhausts the energy that has been stored, it starts eating your cells, starts converting the energy that you have stored. Sometimes it will go to a point where now even your proteins in your body is being eaten, a lot of production of acid in your system, and then ulcers set in.
A lot of issues.
And it's easy now to degenerate to PTSD.
Yes.
Now, the second E is exercise.
During that time.
Imagine.
So
You
during
don't
grieving, you
feel
have to
about,
exercise.
you don't feel like it. Hey, just leave me alone. I just want to be here and
Just stay in the
lay
room
down.
and lock myself.
And now you have to exercise.
Now, it is very encouraged that when you drink, when you eat, exercise.
Yes.
For those who are conversant with psychology of exercise, when you exercise, you activate your systems.
Okay.
Your digestive system will be jump-started.
So we are still there.
Because when you're grieving a lot, sometimes you can even eat and you bloat.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
You know? So your system will be activated. Also, as you exercise, you find that your brain produces some hormones, some chemicals that also trigger that recovery. The tropins that are required. There are some chemicals that are produced by your brain that go to your body and they energize you.
Yes.
Okay.
So exercise. You know, you don't have to go to the gym and do your routine exercise. No, you can like help clean the house. You can
Just
walk
do a little bit
around
of
the
chores.
compound. Yes.
All right,
It
so you
also helps you to get distracted from focusing on what you have lost.
That's
All right.
true.
Yeah. And then finally,
R.
rest.
Just rest.
It's not easy to rest when you're grieving because you can sleep at 7 o'clock in the evening and they wake up at 8 o'clock the following day
next
and wake
day.
up tired
Very tired.
than when you went to sleep.
Yeah, true.
So that is why the combination of all this will also help in relaxing. That's why you can see the R comes at the end. The exercise comes just before. The food comes just before. And then,
Drink.
you know, fuel your body with what your body contains. Your body is 70% water.
Yes.
Replenish your water. Then eat. Fuel your system. Exercise. Let your body kickstart that thought mechanism that there is still life outside
We have
this
to continue.
Yes, and that way you will heal faster.
Yes.
That is basically it. Of course, now there are support systems like the grieving rituals, called the grieving rituals. Africa, we are socialized into one communal mentality.
You have to be there for that person as a community.
Yes.
Let's stand with this person.
Yes.
Let's talk to them.
So when you lose someone, that's why people come,
Many.
even your enemies.
Yeah.
They
They'll be
will
there.
come. Some of them will come to confirm.
It's
Is
happening.
it really
happened.
real? Is it
But
really happening?
At that point, do you care their motive?
No.
They are there, and at least you see you're surrounded by people.
All that matters is that they are there during that time.
God said it's not good for man to be alone.
Yes.
It's not good. And what he meant is that it's not good for anyone to be self-sufficient. So he introduced as a deficiency. So that every time, the reason why God made the helper was that she would help Adam conceptualize the need for relationship. See, that's a topic for another time. So if we don't appreciate relationship with people, we cannot appreciate relationship with ourselves. We cannot appreciate relationship with a higher God. So you see. So when people come, the morning rituals, they come there and they sing, luele, luele. They sing. In the process of all that, the Bible says, where two gather, and they are in harmony. God commands
a blessing.
and not just blessing, but also life forevermore.
Yes.
So this congregation attracts life, emotional life, psychological life, and the emotions that were dying will start reviving.
They are being revived slowly, slowly.
So that, and then you can also, you know, I talked about the rituals.
Yes.
When you go to funerals and there's the viewing of the body, it's not in vain. And then there's the graveside and take soil and actually, because you can as well hire people to come and put the soil. No, you take the soil and then you throw it there. It's just therapeutic in itself. You feel very painful, but it's therapeutic in itself.
Yes.
You can talk about it.
Very important.
We call it ventilating. We call it emoting. Can talk about it. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with showing your emotions. Sometimes emotions may be very raw, but see people hold their head. And when you look at the Bible, there has been cases of grief.
Very true.
Remember Tamar? She was raped by her stepbrother. The Bible says she put ash on her head. She held her head and walked crying.
Yeah.
It was a way of processing that grief. Remember Job, when he found that he has lost everything and also his health is failing, the Bible says he covered himself in ash and sackcloth, and he grieved. So grief, take time. There's nothing wrong with the crying, howling at the top of your voice. And
letting it out.
Because it's like a storm that is within you. So unless you let it out, it will still continue building and building, and it will explode one way or another.
Yes.
So that is it, the positive ways. There are many ways. The negative one is like drinking.
Now the drinking comes.
The drinking.
We call that in psychology engaging in external processes of external ways of processing your pain.
Okay.
So I say, let me drink and forget.
I will forget about it after drinking.
You see?
Yes.
Now, you don't drown your sorrow when you drink. You just postpone the sorrow.
To a later time.
And when you bottle up
The emotion.
then it means when it starts coming out, it will be explosive.
Yeah.
Volcano.
So you don't drink to kill your sorrow.
Yes.
No, that is running away from your sorrow. But you need to process it, go through it so that you can heal and go. You see, David says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, not even though I walk over
The valley.
even though I walk around. And we see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yes.
And if I can now talk about it intellectually, Jesus is there and he's praying and he's so agitated and he's depressed and he's sweating blood, and he's saying, is there a way I can walk around this valley? Is there a way I can walk up? Is it possible for this cup to pass? Do I have to go through the valley? And then he remembers in his valley, he says, not my will, but your will. The body is willing.
He's saying,
Sometimes the body is willing, but the spirit is totally
Out
saying,
of it.
no, thank
So,
you.
no, I don't
So in
want
this
to
case
go
for
through
Jesus,
this.
the spirit is willing, the body is weak.
Yes.
go on.
Many of the times when we go through grieving, the body is willing,
But the spirit.
but the spirit is down.
Yeah.
You see?
Yes.
So you go through the valley so that you can get outside on the other side, because once you go through the valley, then you will not revisit the valley.
Because you've already gone. You're going.
I like saying that the reason for a season
Yes.
is the lesson in that season.
The
All
reason
right.
for that season is the lesson.
The lesson
in
for
that
the season.
Okay.
So if you skip the lesson, then you get rewind. You rewind, you get back. That is why if you postpone grief, you will still go through the grief.
You will come back. And
In
it will
psychology,
hit
we
you.
call it delayed grief. You can grieve 5 years down the line, and people are wondering, what is happening
wrong
here?
with you?
And you're grieving, and you're crying like you have lost that person today. Because you
Yes.
lived in denial for so long. It's complicated. So drinking, enacting some things, self-harm behavior. Like,
Yes.
for example, you say, do I care?
What's the reason to
Like
leave?
how many people react, especially when they are involved in violent and traumatic events. Like you get raped, and you are like, if God allowed me to get raped, then I don't care. So you find them getting into prostitution.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a way of coping with their grief. It's sort of like identification. So you want to live in that situation to help you cope
Heal.
with it. And other many things, like now starving yourself.
You
How
refuse
can
to
I
eat.
when this is no longer there?
When it's
Yeah.
not happening.
Yes.
I have messages,
wow.
I have feedbacks coming in.
Yes.
There's one who is saying, it's 1 year since I lost my spouse. I have not healed. My relatives want to take my children, saying ni wandugu yao. I refused and they hate me. They don't understand me. I really need God to forgive them. They say it's that akona kiburi. How do I go? How do I go on? I do not want to lose my kids.
Double loss, anticipated grief.
Yes.
There was the loss of the spouse and all that the spouse entailed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, in the time of processing this grief, 1 year down the line, it's still there, and that is normal.
Yeah.
Because for some people, as I said, you have a lot of, you have a very strong capacity to mediate your grief, to process your grief.
Yes.
For someone may grieve for 2 weeks, someone may grieve for 1 month, someone may grieve for 1 year. It depends
Even
on
longer.
how you are able to mediate it.
Yes.
And what is exciting about that case scenario is that she understands, or he understands, that now, I guess it's a she because they
Yes.
want to take her kids,
Her kids, yeah.
saying it's theirs. Now, 1 year down the line, she still can process and understand, I've not yet healed, the pain
Not
is
yet.
still there.
Yeah.
You see,
It's a wound.
acceptance, as I said, does not take away the pain.
No, 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 no.
Acceptance does not change the scenario.
It's still there.
These are a situation where you are still reliving the memories, which is very important, to cherish the memories. You learn to live in the new reality, but still stay in touch with
what
your
happened.
history, because you cannot erase history.
Yes.
But now here there are two cases that are intertwined.
Yes.
There is grief and loss. There is loss and grief. And then now there is now a conflict in the family. There's a conflict in the family. They want their children because they think and they claim and they say they are
Our
their
children.
children. And that is a problem sometimes in our African setting.
Yeah.
Because legally, children belong to either of the spouses.
Yes, the
So
mother or
if
the father.
one spouse is not there, children are supposed to remain with the surviving spouse.
Yes.
Now, where children are concerned, and especially in the legal fraternity, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll not go deep into that, but what I know
Yes.
is that a child, when they are below 18, the custody is prioritized to the mother.
Parent. Yes.
To the mother. So if the mother is incapacitated by different things and different scenarios, either is not there or
Mentally,
is
they're
not
not
mentally capable or is totally physically incapacitated, then automatically custody goes to the father,
Immediately.
even if they had separated.
Ah, okay.
Custody goes to the
Father.
father, because children belong to two parents.
Parents.
A mother and a father.
And a father.
Yes.
In this case, the father is not there. So legally, the children belong to the mother.
Mother.
You see. But you see, that can be sorted out legally.
Outside.
She can be helped through legal channels.
Yes.
Now, what my biggest concern, and the concern that should be addressed, is mediating this grief in the context of anticipatory grief. Because if she has not totally healed, then what happens is that during the grief process, there are heightened senses. You become very sensitive to small
Just small
things.
things. They
A
trigger
small
you.
threat like this can really trigger everything else, and you're like, if only my spouse was here, he would
This would
protect
not
me.
have been happening.
Why can't they understand? They are supposed to be the ones who are standing with me.
Yes.
Now they want to come and even take my hope. Remember the case of Elisha,
Yes.
Elisha, and the widow who was the wife of one of the pastors And, in the language of today, that time it was one of the sons of prophets, which means it was the pastors in training. And the pastor had some debts and he died. And the church and the seminary, the congregation where he was serving, were not able to help her to settle the debts. So the debtors came and collected everything. And finally, they come and they want to collect the children. And there's nothing that touches a mother
like their children.
Yes, because when she sees the children, she sees the father. If she really was attached to the spouse, now she can process the grief and learn to cope by looking at them and deriving hope from them.
And looking like, these are my source of hope. And when I see them, I find some sort of joy. So at least, even though he went, I still have a sort of memory for him.
Very true. And she gains also strength from there. When she talks to them, they become her closest company. Because, you see, this support most of the times ends after the grave is covered and
everyone has left.
Now everyone goes back home, and suddenly the house is very quiet. And suddenly empty. The people who are keeping you so occupied are no longer there, and now you are left with your thoughts. You go to your bed to sleep, and the bed is so big suddenly.
And you're alone.
So the children become now the hope of the surviving spouse.
Yes.
So threatening to take away the children is like threatening to take away her livelihood.
Yes.
So what I would advise the lady is, at this time, because when Joseph was in the pit, he couldn't take himself out of there. When he looked up, it is others who came and took him out of there. He did not know them.
Yes.
And they did not have very good intentions for him. If anything, they took him out of there.
To take him to another one.
Yes. But nevertheless, they took him out.
That was the
whole point.
So what I would advise her, to help her, first of all, to deal with the conflict, the psychological, the emotional conflict that is going on, I would advise her to seek some counseling help. Counseling is not for those who have lost it. It's for those who want better in life. They are counselors. Because a talk show like this is just 1 hour and then it's gone.
It's over.
But now this is a real life scenario. Get someone who is trained to help you mediate, and also get some help. So that you are strong. You are strong in helping yourself. You are strong for your children.
Yes.
And you are strong also for your family, because now you are the one who has been left. And when you are the one who has been left, then it means that now you have now to maintain that family structure.
You need to be the pillar of that home.
Yes. And make that continuity to be there for the sake of the children and the foundation of the children. Now, sometimes African traditions can appear unreasonable, to use a polite word, unreasonable, because every child needs a mother.
Very
They
true.
need their mother. And taking the children out of their mother's place also can cause a lot of secondary trauma to the children, because
that's even worse.
They have lost their father. Now they lose their mother. So you see,
breaking them.
It's not actually only the lady who is actually being affected, even the children. And it's worse for the children, because here we are dealing with people who are in their formative time in life. And they need all this support. Instead of them trying to take them away, they would rather, I would argue, that they support these children while they are with their mother. Let the children grow up. When they grow up, they will have a benefit of choice. Then they can choose to join the extended family.
Relatives, or stay with my mom.
Yes.
Okay. As we continue, do you have a question on your end?
Yes, I have a question, but before I read this, let me ask. We have people who grieve differently.
True.
Let's say when you lose someone, there are people who cover up the grief by doing something else.
Yes.
Like drinking, like you said.
Yes.
Kuna watu wenye they want to get away from reality. They want to give stories and have fun, just to forget about what happened. True. So how do you know that someone is grieving? How do you really identify? Or how do you identify that I myself I'm grieving.
You haven't healed.
And you haven't healed from something, maybe loss of a friend or someone close. How do you identify that you're actually grieving and that you're not healed? You're not healed yet. You're just like getting away. You just want to cope with it.
Yeah.
Great. Now, what happens is that I will start with self. How do you know that you're still grieving? There are trigger points and trigger activities.
Okay.
You may find that there are things that you used to really enjoy doing, and you find you are struggling to do them. Sometimes you may sort of seem to recover from your grief.
Yeah.
Go back to your normal life, and you loved your nicely manicured is it manicure, pedicure? Manicure nails.
Yes, manicure.
You used to love them, and suddenly you find you no longer enjoy your nicely manicured nails.
Yeah.
And you are cutting them there. There are things, you go to places and used to enjoy those places, then you discover that you got there and suddenly you don't want to associate with that place. There are things that you loved doing, but suddenly you find that when you do them, they make you uncomfortable.
Yes.
Then, of course, intrusive thoughts. There are thoughts that you are talking about something and suddenly a thought just smashes into your mind. And why am I thinking about this? And
Why?
you start wondering, but I thought that one was okay.
I finished.
That is one symptom of grief.
Okay.
Unfinished grief, unfinished business. You are left by your spouse or significant others, and this one happens especially in breakups, in relationships.
Yeah.
Okay? You had this girlfriend, you have this boyfriend, or you have your husband or your wife, and then you agree to break up, and you break up and you go your way. And even you may move on and get another one and settle
Into a new
down.
one, and you're good.
Then suddenly your new catch, suddenly your new spouse talks, and your mind just goes back to
the
ex.
relationship.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, it does something, and it brings all those memories flooding. So it means that there is a bridge you did not cross.
Okay.
So you keep on going back, keep on
Every
going
single
back.
time.
And then you find that sometimes if it is a case of death, you keep on going back to the grave. Keep on going back to the grave. Sometimes I know a lady who kept the clothes for her husband for 10 years.
Yes.
For 10 years. And for 10 years she used to serve both dishes. She would prepare
Hers and the husband.
And the husband.
And then she eats hers, and then she removes the one for the husband when she's removing hers.
Wow.
Now,
For 10 good years.
yes, and that was a case of delayed grief. When she finally, a friend recognized that and referred for counseling. 10 years down the line is when the lady actually now went through the process of grief and
10
processed
years.
it. And she was there in 10 years. She did not have any relationships. For others, you can look for abnormality in behaviors. Remember, we said that grief is the response to loss. So there is the way you used to live. Then you seem to recover. Suddenly, the things you used to like, you no longer like them. Things you used to do, you no longer do them. Look for those pointers. You can see this person has not really mediated grief completely and resolved it.
Yes.
So that there is, when there is a storm, there's a lot of cloud and it's raining and foggy, but the sun is still shining up there.
Yeah.
And then it rains and rains and there are floods, and then when the clouds clear, the sun shines again.
Yes.
And you see the sun. But if the sun is shining but you still can't see clearly, you start wondering, is there an eclipse or something?
What's happening today?
Is it
Yes, so
the
you
sun?
find people getting out to see. Why is the sun dim?
What's happening today?
So you just see your friend that the enthusiasm that this person used to do this with,
Has
the
gone
way she
down.
used to talk, the way he used to, is not normal.
Things have really changed.
Yes.
All right, so we have Simon Mukundi.
Yes.
Anasema there's nothing wrong with grieving. Even Jesus himself, being the Son of God, wailed and grieved when his best friend Lazarus died. John 11:35. Psychologically, grieving is one way to release the inbuilt emotions. In a layman's way, ni kama vile when the air in a tire or a balloon is too much compressed in it, it will try harder to find a way to escape. Alafu ina burst.
Yes.
Yes. That's
and remember, Simon. We are created in the image of God, and God was the first to grieve.
Yes.
Genesis.
Yeah.
I love going back to Genesis.
Yeah.
In the beginning, Genesis verse 1 of chapter 1, there's light. Everything is okay. Then in chapter 2, there's darkness. And darkness can be taken to denote a time of grief.
Yeah.
If we can take the shadows. And then verse 3, there is introduction of light. Out of the grief comes out of hope. And then what happens later? In verse 4, the Bible says, God looked and he saw. And behold, I like that repetition of the construct of perception. Yeah. God looked and he saw. And behold, which is look.
Anapako Yesu jawar mano wara, asungu Yesu jachang mano changa, apoyo kingi sibor makayuda, atingo nyinge malo ene mami angima. Yesu be, asene nongono kendo tekone, Yesu mit, ngima man kum Yesu mit, Yesu be, asene nongono kendo tekone, Yesu mit, asabile bayudo komit. Nimeonja pendo lake ni mtamu, nimeonja pendo lake ni mtamu, nimemjaribu nimejua ni mwema, nimemjaribu nimejua ni mwema. Anapako Yesu jawar mano wara, asumbo Yesu jachang mano changa, apoyo kingi sibor makayuda, atingo nyinge malo ene momi angima. Amenipa jina sikuwa na jina, amenipa jina sikuwa na jina, naunge nying Jehova nomia, naunge nying Jehova nomia, akanita mwana nikamwita baba, akanita mwana nikamwita dadi, olunga nyathine talunge ni baba, olunga nyathine talunge ni baba, jaulo woi mangongo anapaki pile, jaulo woi mangongo anasungi pile, chieng jamondo anapaki pile, chieng jamondo anapoi pile, kisungo chuo tanasungo Yesu loanda, samisungo chuo anasungo Yesu loanda. Anapako Yesu jawar mano wara, asungo Yesu jachang mano changa, apoyo kingi sibor makayuda, atingo nyinge malo ene momi angima.
Ni kwa hitilafu hiyo, lakini tumerudi tuendelee na mazungumzo yetu hapa kuhusu loss and grief.
grieving.
Yes, ulikuwa unatuambia look.
Naam. Sasa nitaeleza hii kwa Kiswahili kiasi.
Tuanze.
So kuna watu wanasema kwamba hawaelewi Kizungu sana.
Ongea Kizungu
Poleni
mingi.
sana, poleni sana.
Samahani sana.
Naam.
Mimi ni mchungaji pia, kwa hivyo Kiswahili naweza kuongea.
Inakubali tu.
Sasa Mungu akasema na iwe nuru,
Naam.
kukawa nuru. Lakini Mungu hakuondoa giza. Mstari wa 4 akasema kwamba giza itawale usiku na nuru itawale mchana. Kwa hivyo kutoka pale akaweka majira. Kwa hivyo na wakati alipoanza kuhesabu masiku asema kwamba ikawa jioni, ikawa asubuhi siku ya kwanza. Tutoke hapo tuende mpaka mambo ya Mhubiri. Mhubiri anasema kwamba mlango wa kwanza mstari wa 9 anasema kwamba kwa kila jambo kuna wakati wake. Kila jambo, hakuna jambo mpya chini ya ardhi. Lile lilikuwa lipo na lile lipo litakuwa. Alafu mlango wa 5 anasema kwamba kwa kila jambo kuna wakati wake na kila kitu na majira yake. Na inaeleza kuna wakati wa kulia, kuna wakati nini. Alafu mwishowe pale ikieleza anasema kwamba kila jambo ni njema kwa wakati wake. Kila jambo ni njema kwa wakati. Kumaanisha kwamba pale mwanzoni ndipo Mungu alipoanzisha nini?
Kitu mzuri.
Majira. Na akasema alipotazama, akaona, akasema ni vyema. Kwa hivyo yeye mwenyewe ndiye aliangalia akasema kwamba kulia ni vyema. Akasema kwamba kuwa na majonzi ni vyema. Lakini kuna wakati wa kulia na kuna wakati wa furaha. Na hivyo ndivyo alivyoanzisha hiyo ni kama rhythm, ni kama unajua kama wimbo, wakati wa kuimba na wakati wa kunyamaza. Kuna wakati wa kila jambo. Na kila jambo likifanyika katika wakati huo ni kuwa mzuri. Wakati wa kulia ukilia ni vizuri kwako. Wakati wa kucheka ukilia tutasema sasa hiyo sio kawaida. Na ndio nilikuwa naambia dadangu pale kwamba utajuaje kwamba mtu bado anahuzunika, bado ana majonzi? Wakati utaona kwamba hayupo katika majira yake. Wakati wa usiku ni wakati wa kupumzika. Lakini ukiwa sasa usiku ndio unafanya kazi, ndio haulali, alafu mchana ndio unalala kabisa, huwezi fanya kazi, basi tunasema kwamba haupo katika majira yako. Kwa hivyo ikawa jioni, ikawa asubuhi. Na ndio maana akasema kwamba kulia, weeping may tarry for the night. Kulia kunaweza kukesha, usiku mkesha tu unalia, lakini mradi ni usiku, ni wakati wa kulia. Lia. Kwa sababu gani? Usiku haudumu milele. Kwa hivyo kilio hakidumu milele. Asubuhi yaja, na asubuhi ikija inakuja na tumaini mpya, na inakuja na furaha. Kwa sababu gani? Ikawa jioni, ikawa asubuhi. After grief, baada ya kilio, Bwana anarejesha. Ndio maana anasema kwamba nini? Anaihuisha nafsi yangu. Ilikaa kana kwamba inakufa, ilikaa kana kwamba imefifia, ilikaa kana kwamba sitoki hapo chini. Lakini sasa Roho ambaye yeye anajua kilio chetu,
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
The best of worship, playing the best songs locally, internationally, and in different languages.
Lord, I know you hear my cry.
Karibu na wewe, karibu na wewe.
Not forgetting, we are playing your request every Monday to Friday from 5 p.m. to Mosi Nae Maria.
Kaskazini magharibi hautauona upendo kama.
Kutakuwa na mada ya siku, neno la siku, wageni wa baraka na nyimbo nzuri za kumwabudu Mungu, kwa sababu hii ni the best of worship culmination kwenye runinga ya MBCI. Would you like to own a taxi and earn extra income? Then think Maridadi Motors. Unaweza ukanunua taxi na upate pesa na ikupe mapato kila mwezi kupitia programu yetu ya Smart PSVs, ambapo unaweza ukanunua taxi ya shilingi 1700 na upate mapato ya 25,000 kila mwezi, au taxi ya milioni 1 ukapata mapato ya shilingi 37,500 kila mwezi. Katika mpango huu wa Smart PSVs, madereva wetu wamefunzwa na kuhitimu katika utunzaji wa magari. Usiwachwe nyuma. ungana na wengine katika mpango wa kumove your status. For more information, call us on 0709 888 888, 0709 888 888, or visit our offices in Nakuru at D&D Place, Zuhura Place at Thika, or visit our showroom at Ridgeways, Kiambu Road. Maridadi Motors. Move your status.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Samahani kwa hitilafu hiyo, lakini tumerudi. Rachel, ulikuwa na swali ukituuliza.
Yes, so nilikuwa nauliza. There are people who are grieving. They lost someone, they lost something. So, hawaja accept bado. They're taking like a whole year, hawaja accept bado. And the grieving continues non-stop. What are they supposed to do?
That is usually common, especially if you don't have proper support mechanisms. Inawezekana kwamba umepoteza mtu wako na unaendelea tu kuomboleza, unaomboleza for so long. Yeah. Kumbuka nilisema kwamba ukiwa katika ile shimo ya kuomboleza, unahitaji tena watu wa kukusaidia kutoka, ama mtu wa kukusaidia. Jamaa mmoja akakaa katika kidimbwi kwa miaka 38, ako pale tu mpaka hata wakati Yesu alipokuja akamuuliza unataka kuona, akaanza kumpatia stories za wengine, anamwambia hii kitu inafanya kazi. Nimekaa hapa, mtu anakuja. Lakini sasa mimi siwezi ingia, na nikitaka kuingia mwingine anapita mbele yangu. Unaona? Kwa hivyo he was stuck in a situation for 38 years, a lot of wasted time. Na Yesu akamwambia safanya hivi, hauhitaji kuingia katika maji, wewe ondoka wewe.
Toka hapa. Yes.
Na wakati mwingine mtu anaweza kukosa kusaidika kusonga mbele. You can be stuck at any stage. We call it complicated grief. You can have delayed grief. You can get stuck at denial. Unakaa tu nasema hapana, mimi nakaaga hivi tu, ninaota na huyo. Ni kama sijaachwa. Jamaa yako alienda, mrembo wako alienda, hata aliolewa kinasema.
Ameanza kwingine tena.
Ameanza kwingine. Nasema ninajua tu wataachana na
atarudi.
Sasa that one is prolonged denial. Na hiyo usipo saidiwa kwa haraka, inaweza kukaa mpaka sasa ikakuwa chronic grief. Kwa sasa unaomboleza tu. Sio jambo ambalo tunaweza ongelelea kwa dakika moja. Mungu akitupa nafasi tutakuja tuongee kuhusu.
Hiyo itabidi umerudi ndio tuweze kufanya grief. Sasa iwapo mtu anataka kutafuta, anaweza kupata wapi?
Mimi ni mwadhini, lecturer at Kabarak University, nafunza somo la saikolojia na inaitwaje, counseling.
Psychology and
counseling. Mimi pia ni mtumishi wa Mungu katika ofisi ya mitume. Kuna huduma inaitwa NETA Ministries kwa pale Ngata. Kila Jumamosi huwa ninakuwa na nafasi ya kuhudumia watu one on one katika mambo ya ushauriano, na pia kwa wale ambao imani yao inajikita katika maombi tunaweza omba nao. Lakini mimi am a trained psychological counselor and therefore I use both ends. You can get me there. Nambari yangu ya simu 0724 887 431. Unaweza kunipata pale. Katika Facebook ni James K. K ni jina kamili. K-A-Y. Imekuwa kwa screen. Na mimi ni mtumishi wa Mungu kwanza. Mambo mengine inakuja baadaye.
Inafuatilia. Sawa. Sasa asante sana kuja, na tunashukuru sana.